The very first response I gave to my diagnosing neurologist was, "But I have young children." And the second thing I said was, "What am I going to tell my parents?" Something told me that I wasn't right. I walked in and sat me down and he said, "You know, what worries me is that I think you're in the early stages of Parkinson's disease." I call it the 16 words that changed my life. Initially, it made me think my life was over. I didn't know much about Parkinson's. The little I knew, it was an old person's disease except for Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. I didn't know very many younger people who had it. And so I assumed that my life was over. Suffered in silence. Kept quiet about it for 10 months. My wife knew, one or two close friends knew who were doctors. And I just carried it by myself.
When the shaking palsy shook my life, agendas changed, as did my quests and work. The question of why never crossed my mind. Instead, I asked, what? What can I do to live well? What meaning can I discover? What may I do to use Parkinson's for good?
People make choices in their lives. While the wind may blow each of us in a certain direction at certain times, Alan's always, at least in my observation, kind of got that anchor to windward. He's learned to live with this and to handle it with grace, to help other people.
Alan is a mentor to a lot of people. He's got a Parkinson's posse.
He opens his own experience up to allow others to acknowledge theirs. He's earnestly and genuinely and sincerely interested in these stories. It's pretty amazing.
I want to hear about your diagnostic journey. When did you start feeling that something was off, and how did you find out it was Parkinson's?
I'm 52 years old. People usually think that I'm a lot younger because I'm very immature. I was diagnosed in my 40s, but I knew from my 30s something was really wrong. In fact, my knuckles were kind of dragging. I was slower. I would pick up my violin to play, and I couldn't, the vibrato kind of looks like this, sort of like wobbly with the fingertips, and I couldn't, my hand was not responding. So I went to my doctor, and he told me that he thought maybe, well, a doctor, and he wrote in my permanent medical record he thought I was an addict of something like a drug. Mm-hmm. And I realized I must have written on my entrance form something about taking Ativan before I got to the, because I was afraid that he was going to put electrodes in my fingertips. I didn't know what neurologists did. I had no concept of neurology. It wasn't even on my radar. I will say I do feel like women, and in particular people of color, from what I've heard, are sort of disenfranchised in this way. They don't really listen. And I don't know why. I was just this hysterical woman. They kept giving me antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds for years. I was a new mother. We thought it was postpartum depression for a while. Then I thought I had a neck injury because I used to do boxing, and specifically at the UFC gym in the cage. I was literally fighting in the cage. Not like you see people do now where they're beating each other up, but just training. So I thought I had a neck injury. He kept saying that my left side was slower. My trainer would say, Kennedy, your left side's down. And I couldn't figure out why I kept getting hit on the left side. So finally my naturopath said, I think something's neurologic. I'm sorry, please go to a neurologic chiropractor, which is the next step. He can figure it out, but I went back to my naturopath and he said, I think that it's really bad, go see a neurologist now. And he cried. He's a friend of mine. He knew something was wrong. My optometrist was also one of the first people to notice.
Yeah.
Something in the muscles in the back of the eye were twitchy, and she was like, no, something's wrong.